perception of Dresden, I think we had a conversation. We were saying, is this going to be a bit like Blackpool? People of Dresden don't go into the centre, though it's so much more interesting at the centre as far as the development of F&B.
Yeah.
You want to see what is out there, what's going on in Dresden, food-wise, drink-wise.
There's nothing like stepping out and understanding what's around. It's really interesting how many times we meet people who go to other hotels but don't go to the restaurants down the road.
Walking with the purpose, the Mayfair thing, is you believe your own narrative about Mayfair until we had to go and find out what was actually going on.
Walking with purpose and time to look up.
This is Hospitality Huddles, bringing you the best conversations in hotel food and beverage.
Manage, lead, coach, repeat.
Every time I think of hospitality, I think of friendship. Hospitality allows you to be you.
Welcome to another episode of Hospitality Huddles, and we're here at the Vobos studios with Bal.
That's me.
And me, Scot. And if you're used to watching these sessions of our Hospitality Huddles episodes, you'll know that it's me and Bal talking through topics that have been quite relevant to us over the last few weeks since we did the last recording. So Bal, I think what I want to talk about first today is I want to go over strategy and how we develop strategies, and in particular the market research bit of developing strategies.
Right.
Because when we do our projects, we always start with the market research, then into the strategy before we go into the concept development and start doing the nice creative element of bringing the brand to life. So I thought, we'd just been in Dresden in Germany.
Interesting place, very interesting place.
We went there for a couple of days, and I think it's just a great example of when you're doing market research, you can't just live it through the data that we've talked a lot about on this show and when we've been speaking and things like that. Because as much as the data is really important and it's something that we underpin everything with, going to locations, understanding the culture, understanding the vibe, the energy, how the different day parts flow, how the market sits, speaking to stakeholders in the business face to face, in environments that you can kind of talk to, I think is equally as important as having the data sitting there as the foundation. So I thought we'd just talk about why it was so important for us to go to Dresden and chat. There's the intro. What do you think?
It's a good intro. Data, we talk about data a lot, and I think being in market, touching and feeling it, going there, we weren't quite sure what to expect in Dresden, and a very interesting city in that sense. So I think you always have the data. You can scour the net. You got Google. You got ChatGPT. You can have market data, credit card data, all this stuff. But I think what the visit and being in that place does is validate all the data, or not validate it, because you may see skews in it. It puts the meat on the bones.
Yeah.
So it was. It surprised us in many ways, Dresden, and then like when we're seeing the stakeholders or the client or the people, in house, what they think, and then what the data's telling us, and then what we see in the market, and then sometimes they come together, there or thereabouts, and sometimes it's, I wouldn't call it worlds apart, but it's not quite.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite click all in place, does it? So you have to kind of sift through the bits.
It's so true. If I asked you to say what were you expecting of Dresden before we went, and to put that in perspective for people, before we went, we had spoken to some of the stakeholders, both corporate office and non-corporate office. We're working with a branded franchise hotel, and we'd seen all the sales results, all the sales mix and the financial data. We'd seen documents from the tourist board that talked all about how Dresden is very, very tourist based. The events, concerts, things like that have such a big impact on the city, probably more so than kind of what it would do as a big impact. If I'm thinking about like how people have been going on about Taylor Swift and Oasis and people like that in the UK and the impact it's had, I would say the concerts there are probably much more of an impact without the profile of artist that makes a difference. And yeah, I think that was probably the context of it. What was your perception of Dresden? And then I guess coming out of it, what was your takeaway from Dresden?
My perception of Dresden, it was difficult because my only experience of Germany is Frankfurt Airport and Berlin. Berlin's out there, you know, there's no comparison. The two cities are like chalk and cheese, especially over the last 20, 30 years. I think we had a conversation, we were saying, is this going to be a bit like Blackpool? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Not totally, because I think Dresden's got a bit more to it than Blackpool. There's not depravity there, so to say. But my perception of it was, it looks like it's a classic kind of old German city in Saxony. It's hard to pin it. It's hard to pinpoint the perception. Probably cautious is a good word, because I didn't want anything I know of Germany, I've read. You know, obviously you read stuff online, did some research, but cautious probably.
Yeah.
Boring word, but
and then what about afterwards?
Afterwards, everyone's going tourist. Yes, where we were, that centre of Dresden, tourist. But having stepped out that evening, we went out with the hotel GM. I think there's a bit more to it. There's a bit more to it, and it seems like it's not. Divide is the wrong description. It's a bit like Londoners don't go to Oxford Street unless they absolutely have to. The people of Dresden don't go into the centre unless they absolutely have to. So, though it's so much more interesting at the centre as far as the development of F&B.
Yeah. So, I guess for people watching, listening, so we got to the hotel, yeah, and we spent the first period of time in the hotel getting to understand the different venues, speaking to the people. We did the stakeholder questions. We spoke to HR. We spoke to ops people, F&B people, chefs, finance, sales and marketing. We spoke to all those people, brought all their own perspectives in there. Really got to understand it. Spent a lot of time with chef, understanding the kitchens and the operation. It has 4 or 5 different outlets in the space, plus banqueting, plus club lounge, etc. And we did that for a reason, because we wanted to understand the context of the hotel before we went out and understood the context of the town, the city, etc. that we were in. Where we were was very localized in terms of, as you were saying, the tourist area that's very localized. It's in a very tight radius area, and as you step out of that, it becomes very local and the dynamic changes quite a bit. So it was really important to understand the hotel and what drives the hotel, taking in some of that data and things that we've learned before and applying that into what we saw on the ground. And then we went out into the town. Do you want to talk through what we did as we stepped out from the hotel for the first time and started walking the miles and the kilometres?
Oh, we tracked a lot of that kind of, and the square is big, but everything around it and all the other streets off it is dense. It's densely populated as far as outlets, various outlets, retail, predominantly F&B, coffee shops, all that sort of stuff. Damn, man, I don't think we missed too many places. We hit all the restaurants, cafes, from what our meetings told us. And we needed to find the closest comparisons to what the hotel venues were, though that wasn't what we wanted to necessarily see. We wanted to see what is out there, what's going on in Dresden, food-wise, drink-wise. We covered steakhouses. pizzerias, coffee shops. Not many branded restaurants.
No, one. A Vapiano, wasn't it?
Vapiano, no. Yeah, that was
There
the
some
only
local
one.
chains, but not
not really.
international chains.
Mackey's right on the other end, out of sight. Lots of the same. Lots of beer houses. Lots of Italians. Yeah, pizzerias, pasta, that kind of thing. The perception, I could probably answer this question because everyone thinks the perception of what is elevated over there is very different to what we're used to here in London.
Yeah.
It's worlds apart, right? So what they call fine dining to what we call fine dining is totally different. But damn, yeah, we had a pizza, we had drinks. We went to the Augustina, the beer house, and some of them kind of established, I don't know, maybe German kind of household brands or names. They were pretty good. They were pretty good. Quality was good in some of them, and not as cheap as I thought it'd be for a place like Dresden.
No, there was spend there, wasn't there?
There was
definitely spend there.
There was definitely spend there.
And then as we're headed out past that little tourist radius, that first night we went out to see what was happening in the Irish bars and there was one Irish. That first night we went out to see what was happening in the Irish bars and there was one Irish bar. What was happening in the restaurants, how busy they were. It's really interesting to see the shift in guest type and volume between the tourist area and the non-tourist area.
The street, wasn't it, with the trams? That seemed like a border.
Yeah.
An invisible border. Once you cross it, it changes. The vibe changes, the people change, the demographic from an age perspective change massively.
And I think back to the point of why I wanted to talk about this, and we set the scene saying it's not all about data. There's nothing we could get from the data that, well, first of all, we couldn't get the normal like demographic data to the accuracy that we've got before because of Dresden as a market, but we would never have seen that shift had we not gone to the different places and seen it. And I guess for a takeaway for people listening to this, it's very much, if you're sitting in your hotel and you're seeing reports on hot stats or things like that, that's kind of giving you benchmarks or giving you competitor analysis, there's nothing like stepping out and understanding what's around. And I think when we go into hotels, it's really interesting how many times we meet people who go to other hotels but don't go to the restaurants down the road.
That's the nail on the head.
Completely ignore it. And I think this is what I want to get over from this episode is, if we'd have stayed in the hotels of Dresden, the one we're working with, and the rest of them, we'd have had a very, very, very different outcome to our strategy than if we hadn't have done those miles. So the first night we stayed in the tourist area, we saw how the move went. It was a Friday night. We were seeing the weekend in full flow. And then the next day on the Saturday, we watched breakfast, we watched the guest flow and how it all worked. And then we went out and walked the touristy bit again. But then we started heading over the river into the real local area, and we spent probably 3, 4, 5 hours going around the various different neighbourhoods and seeing the difference between that and the tourist area. And I guess if you spun the question back round on me and said what was my takeaway from Dresden, I'd use the word opportunity, because I think especially close to where the hotel was into the local area, the level of F&B seemed to increase. The level of quality, the nature of how it came across more independent seemed to change, and it isn't that much of a walk to go over. So my takeaway from when we went into those parts is there an opportunity of actually pulling some locals in because you're doing something different?
Without a doubt,
rather than just kind of writing it off going, it's all tourist. Yes, it's all tourist. It's always going to be significantly tourist because of where it is. But is there an opportunity that when people are entertaining people in the town, I think they're bringing people to that space? So I think it was really important. And as you said then, one of the briefs was, should we outsource our spaces? or one of the spaces. So we started seeing local operators, and that took us 20, 30 minutes away down into residential Dresden, took us to student areas of Dresden, and we really saw shifts in the concepts and how it was delivered, and probably how busy some of these places
they were
were
up
as well,
for
right?
it. They were up for that type of cuisine. They were up for that type of night out or day out, or like dining in that way, or drinks. Remember when we went to over the bridge? We kept walking straight into Dresden, and it felt Brick Lane Soho, like totally different to not branded tourist area restaurants. The best way I can describe it. I don't know. Think of souvenir shop in Piccadilly. All the same.
Yeah.
When you go over there, the independence, and when you say that the opportunity to go and visit them, and probably most hotels are guilty for this. They don't, and so they can't see the opportunity, and then they believe their own narrative.
Yeah.
Because some of the data is telling them that, but that validation going out and seeing what the others are doing, you're not going to get that from the hotels, because a lot of the hotels do the same thing.
Yeah. And you're not going to get it from sitting in London doing a project and not getting there to see it. And I think that's the big thing, as I say, is the takeaway from this is data is great, but data sometimes has no context. And you have to go and understand the context, or you have to understand the market versus the data, and why some of the data is saying what it is. And I think without that, you lose a real essence. So I guess from this, if you're hiring people to do a strategy and a market research, and they're not coming to the location, they're not asking you to come to the location,
I'd be careful.
I'd be questioning why, because that's in my opinion not going to get you the answers that you want. Or if you're doing it yourself, it's about really getting out. And even in areas, say in London now, there's places you go that I don't go. It's so vast. There's places I go, you don't go.
Yeah.
There's places neither of us go. If we were doing a certain project, let's take the recent one we did in Mayfair. We go to certain places in Mayfair, but I can't remember the last time I walked with a purpose of looking at what was around, where people were sitting, and who those people were in a specific way that gave me context of that particular area in London where I hang out all the time. We have Noreen in Mayfair, right? We spend time in Mayfair, but we've never done it with purpose. And I think that's the big thing that we want to get out of all our rambling about Dresden, of a place where most people in this watching this now have never been, is to say you can't beat walking with purpose and looking and observing and noting what's going on around.
There's that book, isn't it, about London? Look Up.
Yeah.
There's. I don't know who. Everyone's told me, but I couldn't quote the author, so don't call me out here. But walking with the purpose, the Mayfair thing, is you believe your own narrative about Mayfair until we had to go and find out what was actually going on.
Do you know you've just dropped 2 potential titles for this, which means I don't have to do all the work now. Walking with purpose and Time to Look Up.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I tell you what, at that point, I'm going to end it on that bombshell. You'll have to find out which one we picked by checking out the title on the bit. But walking with purpose and take the time to look up.
Banging.
Sprinkle of magic.
There you go.
Bit
of quaddie for you.
See you next time.
You've been listening to Hospitality Huddles, brought to you by Auden Hospitality. If you want to revisit clips from this or previous episodes, make sure you visit our YouTube channel at Auden Hospitality. Thank you for listening to the show. See you next time.